What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, February 3rd, 2025. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil, episode 331. I'm going to go through the intro because we have a special announcement. Phil's going to take the lead after this. But remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article breaking down the Bandits versus Firewolves coming out on Tuesday. The power rankings for Week 11 will be out on Thursday. You can check out our store on our link tree, on all our social media sites, or at the top of the website by hitting the Shop tab. You can represent the BSC on the go and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. But I'm going to pass this over to our co-host, Phil, for some fun, important announcements.
Yeah, so we have a new sponsor for our show that we'll be going over a little bit later, but we're very excited to not only have a new sponsor, but have this specific sponsor, but we'll go over who it is in a little bit. But right now, I just kind of wanted to, we haven't had a new sponsor in a little while, so kind of wanted to go over why we get sponsors and what we're looking for when we go after sponsors. And the big thing for us is that sponsors are local. We'll never really have a national sponsor or something that PK and I don't use ourselves. It is something that either a business we have been to, eaten at, go to, shop at, whatever it is, it's something that we would use, and it's something that we want our listeners to use as well. Not just because we'd like you to support our sponsors, but also because we go out of our way to kind of pick sponsors that our listeners, that gravitate toward our listeners, that it's not something that's out of absolutely nowhere that our listeners are just kind of going to blow off and ignore. It's something that we really want our listeners to be a part of and go check out because it's something that we think our listeners would like. And the money from the sponsors goes to a lot of the behind the scenes work for us, but also like giving out more giveaways for us, allowing us a little bit more freedom to give back to our listeners, give back to charities, just allowing us more freedom to do what we'd like to do. And we haven't really had as many giveaways as we would like on this show because we don't make a ton of money. And we have, in the 4 years of doing this, pocketed nothing from this show. And that's not a negative or a shot at ourselves by any means, but everything that we make for the show goes back into the show, whether it's either updating the production of it or finding ways to give back to the community or finding ways to give back to our listeners. So like, for example, with this new sponsor, it'll give us a little bit more freedom for the Bandits fantasy game that we started. We can have, instead of one grand prize winner, maybe we'll have 2, 3, 4, 5 winners this year. And if PK and I win, maybe we'll defer our winnings to somebody else. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. PK says no. But we haven't had a new sponsor in a little while, so I just kind of wanted to throw out what we look for in a sponsor and why we get sponsors, and that we really do put a lot of time and effort into picking the sponsors that we'd like and then hoping that they choose us in return. We have been shot down a few times. It's not all roses out there by any means, but we do go out of our way to go after sponsors that we think really mean a lot to our listeners and that our listeners may actually use, go to, eat at, shop at, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think you summed that up perfectly. I mean, it's not like we're making any money off of this. It's just all goes towards being able to run this podcast and not cost us a ton of money. Like you said, everything that comes through the sponsors, which we greatly appreciate because they have faith in us, goes right back to the show because, the website costs money to run every year. The behind the scenes, like you were mentioning, being able to run video on this now costs money. So as we continue to grow, we're continuing to pour whatever we get back into the show to make it as good and great as possible. And like you said, as we continue to grow, we're going to be able to give back to the listeners and back to the community is our long-term goal. But I think how you started off right in the beginning, we're not going to be getting major sponsors. We're not going after DraftKings. We're not going after, all the big named sponsorships and companies that are out there. That's not what we're geared towards. We're geared towards more locally based businesses out there because we find it's a good partnership. It's they support us and we support them right back. We both want to grow in this, and I think finding sponsors out there that we enjoy ourselves. I mean, we're never going to have a sponsor on the show that we don't personally enjoy because why would we come on here and lie. Like, that's another big reason why we're not pre-recording all our ads, is because things change. You don't want to just hear the same ad over and over and over, because you could be like me where you're listening to a bigger podcast and it's pre-recorded and you're just hitting that 30-second skip button, and then it's like, oh man, I went too far and 15 seconds back. You want to be able to listen to this and enjoy it, and we try to put as much passion into the sponsor reads as possible to not just make them the same boring thing over and over. It's something different each time, and I hope everybody out there appreciates it and actually does listen to the ad reads, because they're important to us, and hopefully they become important to you. But yeah, you said it perfectly. We'll go over our newest sponsor, which we're both very, very excited for coming on the show, and thank you for having faith in us, and hopefully we return that favor and do well by you. But we will join and jump into this newest episode of the BSC by talking Bandits lacrosse. Still 6-0. Well, not still 6-0. They're still undefeated, Phil. And yeah, thank you, sponsors. This is what you're signing up for. Bandits versus Firewolves, 16-10 victory. Byrne with 5, Smith with 3, Nanacoke, McKay, and Frazier with 2 each. Kluch and Spanger. Spanger's first of the year, 1 each. Vince, 38 of 48 saves. Shots were 54 to 48 in favor of Buffalo. Face-offs very close, 17 to 14 in favor of the Albany Firewolves. Albany 4 of 9 on the power play. Buffalo 2 of 5.
Yeah, this game was, again, I mean, we talked about it a lot in the last episode. I'm going to bring it up again in my article. The third quarter, Bandits, do something different in the third quarter. I don't know what you got to do. I don't know what it is. You come back in the fourth, and I think even rewatching the game, they mentioned Albany did that. Having a young team, they don't really know how to close out games, which is why they've lost a lot of ones in overtime, whereas the Bandits, having a very veteran team, when it gets to the fourth quarter, they know how to clamp it down. They know how to score those clutch goals. And that's great. And their fourth quarter has been amazing. But the third quarter, once again, horrible. And once again, allowing teams to get back into it. I mean, the leads they build in the first half are so monstrous that even when the Firewolves go on a 4-goal run, they're still down by 3. And trying to go on a 7-goal run while holding the Bandits' offense to 0 is nearly impossible. So they build the lead to withstand a bad third quarter, and the game by the end, 16-10, is an incredible score, and they dominated the whole game other than the third quarter. But please do something different in the third. Just make it a little. I don't even care if you don't win the quarter, but make it a little, like, down by 1, not down by whatever it ended up being. What was it, 4-1? They got outscored in the third alone. Make it 4-2, 4-3, just a little closer in the third.
Yeah, it was 6-3 Buffalo leading after 1, 10-4 at halftime, 11-8 after the third. Like Phil mentioned, it kind of got a bit dicey in the third, and then they kind of capitalized like they have all year long in the fourth quarter. This offense, to me, and I guess this is how we can transition to the offense, they're just on another level right now. And even when Albany was going on that long run and Buffalo almost went 15 full minutes, they scored the first goal of the third quarter, and then they went droughtless. They didn't score again until the fourth quarter. 15 minutes, and you're in the arena, you're sitting in the stands, and you're just going, okay, like you had that big 7-goal lead, and Albany goes on that 4-0 run, and you're still sitting there just going like, okay, eventually this offense has got to take off, right? And they definitely did in the fourth, scoring 5. But it's just, I don't know if there's going to be a team that's able to control the Buffalo Bandits offense. And I think with saying that, I really, only 6 games in, they got 12 more games to go, and, we'll bye next week, and then they got 12 games in 10 days, like we keep mentioning. I personally think the only thing really that's going to be able to stop this offense for Buffalo this season is two things. Is the back-to-backs, where if you're getting them off a back-to-back, a travel day, like in 2 weeks, they're going to Mississauga to play Toronto, and then they're coming back home for San Diego. It's not a big trip, but it's going to be their first time playing a back-to-back in 2 years? They didn't have one last year. This is their first time. So, that's a introduction back, and you're facing Toronto and San Diego. But I think getting them off a back-to-back tired that second game could hinder the offense, or injuries. Like, that to me is really the only thing that could stifle this offense. And even when you stifle them, I think you're hoping that they score 11, 12, 13 goals. Like, Rochester's been the one that's contained them the most, and it was 13-goal game. Like, that to me, this offense is just on another level, and on top of being on another level, I mean, goals 4, 5, and 6 in the first quarter here, all 3 were scored on continuous shots. Like, goal 4 off one shot. Next shot was goal 5. Next shot was goal 6. And it just seemed like this offense not only is on top of their game by scoring goals, it's the effort that they're putting in, setting picks, back checking, getting secondary chances. I mean, their first possession, they had 3 chances because they were able to get the loose ball 2 other times. Dane Smith took a shot, got it right back to him, and I think it was him or Buchanan got the second loose ball to continue the same possession. It's just, this offense not only is deadly, but they wear you down by secondary chances.
I mean, a game like this, you put up 16, Chris Cloutier scores 1, Kyle Buchanan has 0. Like, the fact that they can have some of their offensive weapons have an off night and still put in 16 with ease is just insane. They took an entire quarter off between goals and still put up 16. Like most teams can't take an entire quarter off and put up 10 goals or 11 goals. Like, the fact that they were able to and put up 16 and made it look easy, and even like you said earlier, like, yeah, it's only 6 games, but how many times do we have to say that? Like, we've been saying that since week 4, like, oh, it's only 4 games, then it's only 5 games, then it's only 6 games. Like, how many times do we have to, like, how long into the season do we have to go where you keep saying, like, well, that's only 7, it's only 18 games, well, now we're in the playoffs. Like, at some point, you just got to give this team, which we do, I'm not saying we don't, but, like, you have to give them credit for what they're doing, and it's absolutely insane. We'd have to do, which we might do on the next episode, because we won't have too much to go into, so maybe we'll deep dive on some things, but their goal differential is just through the roof. It has to be one of the better ones at this point in the season ever. Their goals for, the amount of points that Byrne and Smith are getting, 10 again each, is just ridiculous. Smith, again, 7 assists. Byrne, you see his shot is really, really heating up. We said it for a little bit to start the year. He was really pure assists for the most part. He was getting 2 goals here and there, which is fine. And then he had the hat trick. Then he had 7. Then he had 5. So last 3 games, his stick has been on fire. I'm loving his little cool off his stick celebration. It's a really good one when it is that hot. But then you have players like McKay bulldozing through 2 players to get a goal at the end of the game where the game was pretty much under control. But again, it's that kind of effort. I think it was at the second last goal of the game where it made it 15-9. So at that point,
shorthanded too.
Right, and you don't need, like, he doesn't need to score in that situation. And he's done it earlier in the year as well, where it's a situation where the game's over for the most part in that situation. And because you're shorthanded, like you just said, you can just, instead of diving forward at 2 players and just bulldozing your way to the net, he could have easily just dumped it in the corner and ran off and just called that a shift, and everyone would have been fine. Like, that's a good shift. You're shorthanded. No one would blame you for what he did. Instead, he puts his head down, bulldozes through 2 players, and scores a goal. Like, that is just the mentality of this team and why it's so different. And other teams do stuff like this, but to see the amount of effort that this team gives every single night and every single time of the game, it's again, we're going to say it probably the rest of the year unless something crashes, but just enjoy the good times while you're in them, because this is just, they're so much fun to watch. This offense is electric. And then even Chase Fraser throwing that behind the back, like, just, it's like it's nothing. To Hoka Nanticoke doing what he does. And that's the other thing. Like, those are players that you can count on, like, getting 1 to 2 goals every single game, and it's just kind of, they pick and choose when they want to show up. Like, Nanticoke had a great pick and roll. I thought the pick and rolls in this game in general were really, really good. Fraser had the other pick and roll. I thought they really worked that better than I've seen them in other games. But Tahoka just kind of, it seems like, and I'm sure this isn't how it actually works, but it seems like he just decides mentally, like, this is when I'm going to score, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do it, and then he just makes an incredible highlight reel goal, and away they go. I don't know. There's just not too much more we can say about the offense. I thought they looked great, and I mean, to get Jameson's off. I don't know
there's something up with him this season.
I don't know what's going on with him. I'm sure he would admit it as well. So this isn't coming out of nowhere, but there's something off with him. I thought Kidd did a good job in relief. But again, this Bandits offense is very, very difficult to stop.
Yeah, Nanakoke 2-1-3, Kluch 1-0-1, McKay 2-1-3, Byrne 5-5-10, Bucky 0-2-2, Smith 3-7-10, and Frazier 2-3-5. And there's a few more things I want to talk about with the offense. One, Frazier, up until last game, and it kind of got started towards the end of the Toronto game, where he scored that game-tying dive across the crease goal. He was having a quiet season. I thought he was having a very good season, just quiet stat-wise. I thought he was doing a lot of the dirty work. The last 2 games, he's gotten a lot more involved in the offense. And it's not just the goal scoring from Chase Frazier. He's been known to be that laser goal scorer and the celebrations that follow after all the goals. But this game alone, yes, he had the beyond ridiculous behind the back, but the feeds he was feeding, like the pass to Nanakoke off that fake pick that he rolled by and Frazier just threw it right into him. And then the one that's even more ridiculous is the one where he fed it right to Josh Byrne, who was streaking with 1 second left on the shot clock, which was also another shorthanded one. His passing has definitely gotten to another level this season where I don't think it's being talked about or recognized as much as it is, because he's just been known to be that goal scorer. I mean, he's got probably 30 to 40 more goals than he does assists, and that's not normal for NLL type of players. But his assists this year have been really noticeable. The second one is this offense can be there's one more thing that I thought of while you were talking that could hinder this offense, and it's if the offense if Burns having an off night and Smith's having an off night. Yes, you're going to have that secondary scoring, but we haven't seen the transition game quite this year. And I think you were the one that brought it up on the things that they need to improve on is the transition game. That still needs to take this step. But when your offense is being unbelievable how it is this season, why would you want to have much of a transition game when you can just pull them off and throw out the 5 offensive players that you do? But it's the power play. They were 2 for 5 today, but I'm excluding they were really 2 for 3. I mean, the last 2 power plays kind of came right at the end there. They're looking to kill clock rather than shoot. I mean, I think Connor Farrell had a power play shot because it was just towards the end of the game. But I like the power play a bit more in this one. They're missing that one key ingredient that we've known Buffalo to have. And for years it was them trying to get Brad McCulley to do it. It's the quick stick. We have not seen the quick stick attempt very often on this team, and that's why I've been saying, yes, you want Dane Smith to run your power play, but every once in a while, throw him on the bottom half, feed it over to him. Everybody's going to crash that side, and if he's able to quickly throw it across and to one of those lefties, the quick stick will be wide open. But again, there's such little things that you can nitpick with this team. The power play definitely does still have to get better. I thought they were better in this one, going to me 2-3, not 2-5, but I do think that if this team is going to reach that historic level of just ungodly numbers, if the power play continues, they're going to reach that point. But, we can kind of transition to the defense right here. I thought they played very solid, considering that 6 of the 10 goals were even strength goals. So, I mean, 4 of them were on the power play. I thought the defense had a very solid game. I thought there were very unfortunate lapses in a few of these that I think if they were to look back at the tape, it would be like, okay, yeah, that's kind of where we messed up. There were a few times where I think they got lucky. The one stands out to me is it was maybe 4 or 5 seconds left on the shot clock. And typical Bandits, when they see 4 or 5 seconds on the shot clock, for some reason, all the players just swarm at the ball. And I'm in my seat looking at the field because that was the one that the Firewolves are shooting on my end. And I'm looking up, I'm like, Zach Belter's covering 2 guys wide right in front of the net. Like, where is this other defender? And then I look, I'm like, oh, they're all attacking Ethan Walker right now. So there's just times where there is breakdowns. The third quarter kind of was an example of that. But I thought overall they had a very solid game. I do think they're missing Justin Martin in this lineup more than we would like to admit. But, yeah, I think Justin Martin, when he comes back, hopefully because he was upgraded to doubtful on the injury report this week, give him an extra week rest, kind of what we were assuming in the last show. But once he's back into this lineup, I think this defense will be able to lock it down more that what we saw in the first 3 games rather than the last 3.
Yeah, I think even though I don't think he played a bad game by any means, I think Belter coming off his injury a little bit, coming back to the team, I think with the time off, he also seemed like he was just maybe a step behind. Like I don't think he played bad, but I think he just needs to get going again. Not in a bad way. I think once this week off is done and the defense as a whole, especially if Martin can come back and start playing more consistently, just games in general, I think as a whole they'll be a little bit better. I don't know if you did, I didn't really have any goals on the defense that I really blamed them for. There were some simply great plays by the offense where I thought the defense maybe looked a little bit caught, but at the same time, honestly, I thought just Albany, they have a dynamic offense, and when they made it work, they made it work. And yes, the defense got beat, but I think it was more superior offense in that situation than the defense necessarily playing bad. Like there were a couple plays where it was just a little bit of a slow switch between the two defenders, but it wasn't necessarily a bad switch or like a super slow switch. But it was just a little bit too slow, and it was enough room for the Albany player to score. There were a few times that players looked a little bit lost, but again, it was because the Albany players sweeping from left to right, dragging the entire defense with him, throws it back over his shoulder to somebody who's wide open. So yes, there were some plays that I think they would want back, but for the most part, those I kind of credited to Albany just playing well. And that's the other thing about this game. We'll get into it in a little bit, but for the defense and the offense, being able to put up 16-10 when you have 20 minutes of penalties and you're down on the power play 9 times, that is an insane amount of time. That is over a quarter that you are down a man. And for the offense to, I mean, 2 of them were shorthanded for a reason. For the offense to be able to still score as many as they did, having so many shorthanded opportunities against them, and for a defense that just wears you down as a defensive unit. So for them to be able to fight through that many power plays and just being down a guy that many times, having the same guys, your main guys out there over and over and over, it wears you down for an entire game when the other team has 9 power play opportunities. So I think how the offense and defense played with that as part of it, I think they all did pretty well as a whole.
Yeah, a couple things left on the defense that kind of stood out to me. Belter did likely save a 4th Albany goal. I mean, it squeaked through Vince, and Belter was right there. It kind of went off his foot or shoe. Yeah, that one was going to squeak in, so he got that block.
Sprinted off the field like a madman. I was like, yeah, there he is. I still remember the Belter we know.
It was playoffs last year. I can't remember which game it was, but he busts his butt to the bench, and they were able to get Cooch on the field, I think it was, for the lob pass. Yeah, that was he definitely did bust his butt to the bench after that one. Dawson, big block. I think that's how he got his giant welt on his leg. And then Weiss got another block one on the penalty kill early in the third, which was nice to see because their penalty kill has struggled the last 3 games. Wires loose ball gather after a nice save by Vince on the 5-on-3 penalty kill, killed a little bit more time there. Spanger, great chance in transition, didn't capitalize on it, but he busted his butt back after a great save by Kidd and caused the 8-second violation on that one. And then Steve Priolo draws the slashing call when he's holding the ball for like 20 seconds on the penalty kill. So I do agree. I think some of this, some of the issues that they had on defense in the third quarter can be attributed to how much time they were on the penalty kill, because it's usually the same 4 guys out there. It's Dawson, Wires, Weiss, and Priolo. They normally don't cycle through those guys, and they're getting a lot of wear and tear on the body because the penalty kill. And then when they're out there and it's the group of 4 of them, there's one guy out there with fresh legs. So I would like to see, as the season goes on and they're playing the 12 games in 10 weeks, maybe cycle through and add new players in there every other shift for the penalty kill, just to give those guys a bit of a rest. Because on Steve Perillo's podcast, he's saying like, hey, I play like 25 to 30 minutes a game. If you can knock that back a little bit, because I'm not saying he's old, but he's one of the veteran. He's got some mileage on the legs. If you dial back some of the minutes, especially in this long stretch of games that they got, I think it'll be beneficial come playoff time. But before we get into the goal.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, let's get into our sponsor. But if you have another defense,
just you talked about transition earlier. I did think that they had a decent amount of transition opportunities in this game. I don't think they capitalized on all of them, but it looked like they were being allowed to, or just simply had more chances to push it. Like you said, Spanger got the goal, and even on that goal, Great block by Weiss, who then picks up his own rebound, sprints all the way down, passes it to Spanger, gets the goal. So Spanger getting his first of the year, thought looked good. I thought they had a few other pretty solid transition opportunities. Like you said, Spanger again, but Kidd was able to make the save. I think they had maybe 3 to 4 total that were just really, really good transition opportunities. So it does seem like over the last couple of games, even if they, I mean, 2 games ago, you had Dawson, you had Wires getting there first. This time you got Spanger. So it does seem like the transition game is slowly starting to pick up a little bit more. And I know it's never going to be elite compared to other teams because the Bandits offense is just so incredibly powerful that they're told, if you have a great opportunity, take it. But for the most part, you want these dynamic stars out on the field trying to score. But it does seem like they are starting to pick up the transition a little bit. And if they can get even 1 to 2 goals a game in transition, I think that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for 3, 4, 5, 6, but even just 1 to 2, it really does help swing momentum. It helps just keep the offense a little bit fresher, not putting as much pressure on them to score every single goal. If the transition game can step up a little bit here and there to put some extra goals in, I think it just takes that little bit off the offense and allows them a little bit more freedom to be a little bit looser. Not that they need anymore because they're playing amazing. But I do think the transition over the last 2 weeks has stepped up a little bit.
So now before we get into our goalie spot on this game, let's get into our first sponsor of the show, Tap That Tap Room.
Tap That Tap Room is at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar featuring 30 consistently rotating taps, offering a wide variety of beer, cider, sour, seltzers, and malt beverages.
Now, just a reminder, they do have a patio, and I'm not saying patio season's here yet, especially with the snow on the ground, but just a reminder, when the nice weather rolls around,
there,
and you want some patio bevs, they're the
fake
place to
spring
go.
should be coming up soon.
That is true. All the snow is going to melt. It's going to flood my basement, and then, then it'll be winter again, so don't get fooled yet. But, yeah, they have an unbelievable patio. I remember last summer, me, my wife, and my brother all went out there for a trivia night, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But it was we were in contention for a minute. But, if you want to have your own fun at trivia, and hopefully you won't be out on the patio yet, Wednesday the 5th, 7:30, Geeks Who Drink Trivia is hosting their weekly trivia night. Head out there, let them know we sent you. And if you win, send us some earnings our way. We'll love you. But at Tap That Tap Room right now, they have the Peach Ring Sour Ale from Community Beer Works on tap. Now, I don't know if you were a candy guy, Phil. I was a big candy guy, still am, shouldn't be. But this thing tastes just like those gummy peach rings you had in your childhood or your adulthood if you still eat them. But it sounds absolutely delicious. I know my wife absolutely loves any type of thing that's peach related, so we might be heading down to Tap That Tap Room while it's still on tap. But for all their other events, check out their Facebook page and find out what else is on tap and what's on deck. Head to tapthattaproom.com. Let's move over to the great one, Matt Vince, in net. I thought he played very solid on this one. I don't think there were any squeakers he would have wanted back. I think the goals that went in were either slight breakdown by the defense or, like we say a lot, not every goal that is scored on Buffalo is due to the goaltender or the defense. The offense has very talented players, like the Simmons one, where he's running across the top of the defense. LaRue is kind of, I believe LaRue was right on him. But it was such a pinpoint perfect shot. I mean, I'm sorry, that was a power play goal. There's 6-1 to make it 11-6. It was just an incredible shot. I mean, I don't even think it hit off the crossbar. It was between Matt Vince's left shoulder and the crossbar, and it was just beautiful. Like, there was almost nothing you could have done on that one. But, it's just, I thought he played very, very solid, especially early on when Buffalo was getting in the penalty trouble. I mean, I counted at least 3 or 4 times where Albany was crossing that ball over for a quick stick, and he's just on the post. And not just was he on the post, there was no rebounds. He was soaking them up and keeping them contained to him. So I thought, once again, Matt Vince was elite Matt Vince in this one. Did he give up 6 goals? No. But, 4 of the 10 were on the power play. And when the other team's on the power play, as good as the penalty kill had been, and I think the penalty kill has struggled the last couple of games, but as good as the defense can be, I think Matt Vince was really, really solid in this one. And it's just, he made one of those vintage Zach Higgins saves, even when Priel kind of leaves Kurtz all alone. And, they go to double Simmons. Matt Vince makes that great handed save off his left hand. It's just, it reminded me of, I'm not trying to compare the two, but it was like Zach Higgins type of save this year. I really liked what Matt Vince showed in this one. And it will be very interesting to see how this is going to sound bad, how he holds up in these next 12 games across 10 days, because he is 42 years old. He is still one of, if not the best goaltender in this league, but he has not played back-to-back games in 2 years. Remember, there was no back-to-back for Buffalo all last year. Now, in the playoffs, there were. Versus Toronto, it was back-to-back, and versus Albany, it was back-to-back. So they got a little bit of a taste of it. But this seems like it's going to be a very big stretch, and it'll be very interesting to see how Matt Vince fares in all these games leading up. Again, not a shot at him. It's just going to be something that I take note of moving forward.
Yeah, there's only one goal I had that I thought maybe Vince would have wanted. It was the Moyer goal, second goal of the game, where he
moved
shot
his
it
foot
from
last second.
Yeah, he shot it at the worst angle possible, and he just missed it. But for the most part, I agree. I thought Vince looked really, really good in this game. He looked much more comfortable than he has the last two games. They didn't allow 14, so it was good to see them get off of that. And same thing.
You keep saying 14, though. Toronto only scored 13.
13/14 goal, 13 and a half.
I had to look back because after last show, you kept saying 14. I'm like, I think they've only given up 14 once.
Was it 15-13?
It was 15-13, yeah.
I have 16-14 in my head, so there you go. But yeah, he did make a lot of the bigger saves that we're used to seeing him make. But again, the same thing with the power plays. Like, yes, 4 of the 10 were on the power play, and that is slightly expected. But the same thing for a goalie as it is for all the other players. 9 power play opportunities is a lot to deal with for a goalie as well. You're just sitting there getting peppered with shots over and over and over. It's a lot. It's a lot for this team to deal with when you go on the penalty kill 9 times. So same thing with him. Like, you're going to wear down at some point. He did fine. I thought he played really, really well. Like you said, the post-to-post saves were big. He was making breakaway saves. He was making one-on-one saves. Like, everything that you need Vince to do, he did in this game. And I think it's easy to call out going back to 6 even strength goals against an Albany team that can put them up with the best of them. I think that is what you're looking for from your defense and your goalie. And I thought Vince looked really, really good in this one. I think he looked more like he did in the beginning of the season than he did in the last 2 games. He just looked like he was much more comfortable in making those big saves again.
I'm just waiting for the comments during this 12-game run. And we keep mentioning it, but I'm going to keep mentioning it.
It's going to be a doozy.
I can't wait for the first comment of somebody going, we should really rest Matt Vince and see what Orelman can do behind him, because this is going to be a long stretch. Stop. Just stop. They're a 2-time defending champion. Their eyes are not towards 2025-26 yet. Their eyes are on towards a three-peat, whether they want to admit it or not. Their goal is to three-peat this season. They're taking it one game at a time, which everybody's going to say, taking one game at a time. But their end goal is to win a championship, and they're not doing it with Matt Vince on the bench. Like, it's just not happening. So get that out of your head already. I know those comments are going to come, but I don't care. I'm trying to put a stop to it now. Miscellaneous stuff, kind of a cleanup here. First quarter, Farrell kind of misses the pass. I'm noting 2 errors in his way. I know this was a big game where everybody's going to be talking about Connor Farrell because they had the Let's Go Farrell on the Jumbotron, which I like the newest edition on the Jumbotron. I'm not against it, but I will give producer Pat credit for this. Hopefully he hears this. Instead of fire shooting out of his head, we said it should have been milk. Just saying. That would have looked
disturbing.
It would have looked disturbing, but if he's the milkman, why is he shooting fire out of his head? No,
it's fair.
If they make the correction that they should make, just credit producer Pat for it. I want to give the credit where it's due, and he was the one that said it. But yeah, I mean, the one missed pass caused the 8 seconds. I do think Nick Weiss, I don't know what is up with this team, but they just seem way too lackadaisical at times. And this is not just this year. This has been years past. There's times where they're just way too lackadaisical. And yes, that's the second time I'm using that word because it's a fun word. That they just don't hustle to get the ball across the midfield line. He get called for 8 seconds. The second one, there was only one time where Farrell tried to go beast mode, and it was in the third quarter, I believe it was, and it ended up being a turnover. But I will credit him. I thought he had a very, very good game in this one versus one of the better face-off men in the league. It was 8-8 in face-offs in the first half. So Nardella won it 9-6 in the second half. But I thought these last two games, mostly the first half of the Philly game, but the majority of this game, he has found those open players after a clean face-off win. There was just that one time he got a clean face-off win, tries to go beast mode, and it ended up being a turnover. But I have really liked Connor Farrell's game the last 6 of 8 quarters. I thought he's played the best lacrosse and the best NLL action that we've seen out of him. And I still have to try to remember he's played, 15 games in the NLL in box lacrosse. So I'm trying to give him more wiggle room, thinking about it that way. But I have liked his game. And with him playing the way he has and being able to win those faceoffs cleanly and get it back and get the possession, that's where you add value to this team. It's the ones where you need to win it is where you're proving your spots on this team. And I think there's been a handful of times he's come up short, but there's been more times than not where he's come up big on a clean face-off win when he needs to have it. So I really have liked his game. And as somebody who's saying face-offs matter in certain situations, that each one has a value, I have liked our Fogo on this team this season.
Yeah, this was, no offense to him, but this was his first real test all season. Everybody else has been...
Agreed.
No other team he's played against has had their face-off guy in, whether it was Rochester on holdout, T.D. Erlin was on injury, so they really he hasn't gone up against an elite face-off guy yet this season. This was his first real big test, and I think he did fine. Like you said, the big thing we liked about McKay back in the day, not that he's ever been a face-off guy like this, but the big thing with him was just not getting beat cleanly by the opposing face-off guy, and I think Nardella only had a handful of them where he really won it straight. Other than that, it gives your team enough time to figure out what's going on, either get your defense on, get your offense on, win it cleanly, whatever you got to do. So I think in situations against really good face-off guys, that's kind of what you're looking for out of your own face-off guy. So to see him go 14 of 31, almost 50%, like you said, 8 of 8 in the first half, 8 and 8 in the first half, not 100%, but I think he did fine. Like you said, definitely still some things to clean up, and I think the team, like we saw in the early morning shoot-around before the one game, they do seem like they're trying to focus in on what to do after he wins a face-off a little bit more here and there, but like you said, he's only 15 games into his career. It's going to take time for him and the team to adjust to just how to win with him in there and what his tendencies are and all that, and it's so much to deal with all in 1 second. A face-off happens so quickly, and what can happen after face-off, the variety of what can happen is just, there's so many variables. If it can either be won cleanly, he could pass it, he could launch it back to somebody else, there could be a huge scramble. Like the one him and Nardella had, they just circled each other for 15 seconds. Like, trying to set up a play after a face-off isn't easy because you have no idea where that ball's going to end up. You don't know if he's going to win it clean, need to be open. You don't know if you need to rush in and help him get a loose ball. So it's a lot to handle all at once. But I think him and the team against one of the better ones in the entire league did a good job.
Yeah, I'm glad you added the team there because I thought they handled the scrambles for the balls very well. I think it was Dylan Robinson and Ian McKay kind of teamed up.
I think we've seen LaRue on the last couple of games being a big face-off guy as well.
He's been out there. Belter's got a few opportunities too. Yeah, there's been a few new guys out on the face-off draws, so that's nice to see. But last thing to clean up here is kind of the penalties. And I know with the Bills losing the way they did, referees are a hot topic, and we're not ones to come on this show and bash the refs for pretty much any reason. I thought the majority of the calls in this one were the correct calls. The one that I will never understand, and this is the one that I'm going to critique them, is the Ian McKay into the box for embellishment. I like that they also called Andrew Kidd for it and not just given Ian McKay embellishment. To me, I can't understand is if you're calling one player for roughing, how can the other player on the opposite team get called for embellishment? Because if there was a penalty on the play, how could that same player embellish being victimized there? Like that's what and even if you don't even look at the replay, which he did get cross-checked right in the head. So that was an embellishment. But even if you weren't watching that, how can you, with a straight face, call a penalty on one player and the play that this was accused on, or the player getting penalized or being penalized on, I don't know how you phrase that.
Player A and player B.
Player B, who was involved in that, they didn't get the penalty. How was he being called for embellishment if there actually was a penalty on the play? Like, that's what I can never understand. That's what I think is the dumbest rule in the NLL right now, is there can be embellishment on an actual penalty. Like, unless there's just like, okay, I whacked you with my stick and you're on the ground just writhing in pain, rolling all over the place. Yeah, that's embellishment. But like, he got cross-checked in the head. He's holding his head and instantly it's embellishment. Like, that's what I can't understand, is how something like that can be called. It didn't end up harming them whatsoever, but it's just, that's my rant of the day, Phil. That's my rant of the day. How can it, I already went over it.
I would love to argue with you, because when we agree, it's not nearly as fun for the listeners. But
it means I'm right.
I do agree with you on this one. We've talked about it a lot off the podcast. It just doesn't make sense how you can have both in the same play. You already went over it, so I'm going to go over the one that I don't like, because the Bandits have been called for it twice now. It is the rule, and I think the rule needs to change. Priolo brought it up on his podcast as well. Chris Cloutier losing his helmet for getting hit in the head by an opposing player. He did go in with his stick and try to swat the ball, which is why the penalty was called. I just, if it's a player safety issue, then blow the play dead and give possession to the other team. Like, if that's really, like, charging someone 2 minutes for them not immediately running off when their helmet flips off when they're in the middle of a play, in the middle of a scrum. It was Weiss last time who, honestly, Weiss got away with a lot more before they called that penalty. He was able to pick up the ball, run 5 steps, and then pass it before they actually called the penalty on him. Cloutier just literally took 1 step, swiped at the ball, picked up his helmet, and ran off, and they immediately called him for making any kind of move toward the play when, like, as an athlete, as a player, you're in the middle of the play. It's not like he was off doing nothing away from the ball. Like, for them to instantly turn off their competition mode when their helmet flies off and just be like, oh, okay, I'm out. Like, it's just not going to happen. And for that to be a 2-minute penalty when it's like, you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything to the other team in that situation where you did something to them to cause a penalty. It just seems like such a steep cost for a safety, what seems to be nothing more than a safety player rule, where you just lose your helmet and because you kept playing, that's, they have to call a delay a game, which, like, the penalty just doesn't make sense to me. I just don't get why that is considered a 2-minute foul against your team. Like, in a close game, that could be a big swing. Even Priolo said, I mean, this game's a huge example. Going on the penalty kill 9 times is such a drain on a team. This is one of the 9 times. Just give the other team the ball and, like, let the player get off the field. And if that same player does it twice, like, if for some reason, I don't know, I was trying to think of this in my head. Like, I don't know why a player would ever do it intentionally, because you're still giving the ball to the other team. So I don't know why you would ever intentionally lose your helmet. But for some reason, if they found that was another issue, then maybe the second time it happens to Cloutier, if he doesn't run off, then penalize him if you really want to. But to see the Bandits go down a player because Cloutier got hit in the head, lost his helmet, and didn't immediately stop playing while he's in the middle of a play and just sprint off seems so harsh for what it essentially boils down to, his own player safety, and you're penalizing him for not immediately stopping. I don't know. It's just such a weird rule. And again, the refs called it correctly, I guess. I think, again, they were a little quick on the whistle. He literally took 1 swipe at the ball and then sprinted off and picked up his helmet. But I think that rule just needs to change. I just think it's a bad rule.
I agree. I agreed with Steve Perillo said on his podcast about it, is once the helmet comes off, if you do not make the move straight to the box, it should be blown dead and possession should change to the other team. Not a penalty. It should be a quick, simple rule. But we'll move on to the milestones here. Thank you. So many were accomplished.
So much yellow highlighted.
So much yellow on this board, and
That's
they
good.
weren't.
That's a good
they
thing.
weren't by a lot. It was by the skin of their teeth. Nick Weiss needed 1 assist for 100. He got it. Josh Byrne needed 3 loose balls for 400. He got 4. Chase Frazier needed 2 loose balls for 300. He got 2. Ian McKay needed 6 loose balls for 600. He got 6. Connor Farrell needed 1 loose ball. He got 5 for 100. Cam Wires needed 1 loose ball for 100 for himself. That's 5. Nick Weiss did play, so he's tied with Kevin Brownell in games played. 7th place, Bandits history. Chase Frazier needed 5 points to tie accordingly for 10th in Bandits history. He got 5. And Connor Farrell moved into 9th place, beating out Tom Fair and Chase Frazier for face-off wins in his Bandits career.
And good on Buffalo finding their own milestone and not copying off our paper and getting Vince's 16,000 minutes as a goalie.
I did forget about that one. That one's on me.
Yeah, that's on you. But, I think you did it to test Buffalo to see if they were truly copying our notes. But good on them finding their own milestone. Obviously, we are joking. But yeah, it's a lot less that you have to read next time. You got just 2 there, and I did hear, was it Smith's coming up on his 400th goal?
Yeah, he's 9 or 10 away. So
yeah,
I'll keep track.
With the way he's been scoring the last few years, he only averages like 2-3 a game, so he's got a little time. But you never know. We could have a monster 10-goal game because he's Dane Smith, and he has it in him if he really wants to turn it on.
Well, with the milestones next time, there's 2 games in the weekend, so there'll probably be a lot of milestones. Because anything that's remotely close and possible in 2 games, I have to read. So, before we go over the NLL Outlook, Phil, let's dive into our second sponsor of the show. And for the first time, Phil, take it away with Totally Buffalo.
Yeah, this second sponsor is a prime example of what we're talking about with trying to find somebody for the listeners. Totally Buffalo Store. They have 3 locations in Amherst, Orchard Park, and Lewiston. They are there to celebrate all things Buffalo, including the town, beloved sports teams, and thriving small businesses. They collaborate with 100 local artisans to showcase their talents and craftsmanship. They have apparel for the Bills, Sabres, Bandits, and more, jewelry, home decor, glassware, candles, soaps, and more. You have so much you can go and get there, and they do have, this is the big one, a very large Buffalo lacrosse section featuring adult and kids apparel, tumblers, and accessories for all our lacrosse fans out there. We are a Bandits-dominated podcast, and we see in the group chats and the messages and the comments that people are always thirsty for new Bandits apparel. This is a company and a local business that features a lot of local artisans and has plenty of Bandits things to go and purchase. So if you're looking for something new for the Bandits, you want a new shirt, you want a new hoodie, you want a tumbler, you want some accessories, they have it there.
Yeah, I absolutely love these type of stores. They do unbelievable work, and I can't wait to check out all 3 other locations. We were just at the Lewiston one today, which is Sunday, so we were out there looking at plants for the new house. Brooke wants indoor plants, but we were out there. I'm like, hey, they have a Lewiston location. Let's stop in, and we did. Absolutely love the Lewiston location. Absolutely love the new sponsors so far, so I can't wait to check out the other 2 locations. So get your pen and paper out, and or just your phone, since it's not 1960 anymore. Here's the 3 locations. First one's Amherst, 3328 Sheridan Drive. Orchard Park's location is 3459 Amelia Drive, and then the Lewiston location that PK, me right here, was at today, 467 Center Street. We're going to be deep diving more and more into this new sponsor as we go, but the first one, we just wanted to introduce who they are, what they do, and where they're located. And as we get more and more invested in this sponsor, we're going to get more and more invested in what they're doing and let you know so you can keep up to date. So follow them on their Instagram, Facebook, and website. They post merchandise updates as well as any discounts they may be offering. So give them a follow and let them know we sent you, because they're fun and awesome new sponsor on the show. And thank you, Totally Buffalo, for giving us a chance. Hopefully we don't let you down, and we let down a lot of people in our lives, but hopefully you absolutely love what we are able to help and work towards as partners in this thing moving forward. So all of February, check out total. And as we move forward.
And beyond.
And beyond. I just meant as February continues, they're going to be nonstop on this episode. And on this, I'm just going to move forward, Phil. Check out Totally Buffalo. Can't wait to check out their 2 other locations. So NLL Outlook, there were 6 other games to talk about, 2 Fridays, and 4 more Saturdays to talk about since Buffalo played on Saturday, and we don't have to talk about them because we already did. Halifax taking down Vancouver 10-9. Vancouver actually led 5-3 early in the second. 6 straight goals by Halifax. Nearly 25 minutes with no goals by Vancouver between the 5th and 6th goal. I'm sitting there watching and I'm going, man, this defense for Halifax absolutely reeks. Like, they were horrible to start the game. And then Warren Hill's making unbelievable saves to keep him in, and then the defense settled down, and they were able to walk out with the win. This was a Tarafanko game, 3-2-5 in the transition role, 8 loose balls, 1 block shot, 1 caused turnover, because the offense was kind of smelly. They didn't do much besides, my boy Theed had 2 goals, but Withers had 1, so 3 of their 10 goals came from the transition game. Vancouver, again, offense has been and will be continuing to be an issue. Aiden Walsh, 43 of 53 saves. Can't blame him fantastic in this one whatsoever. Calgary takes down Ottawa. Ottawa continues to struggle, 11-8. Calgary 7-4 after 3. Calgary, they're doing better than I thought they would. They're sitting above 500. I thought they would definitely struggle, and they won a game that they didn't have to score 15 to 16 goals. Just benefit they're facing Ottawa, who also can't score more than 8. Pace 4-2-6 was the big one in this one. Cam McLeod played very well, 36 of 48 or 44 saves. Kind of, if you're a struggling goalie, you want to face Ottawa right now. Dunbar led the way, 3-1-4. Phil, this is the second straight game Jeff Teat has not scored a goal. This one 0-3-3. Last game he contributed 75% of the goals. This one, he's just there's something going on with Ottawa right now, and you feel bad for Zach Higgins, who went 33 of 43 in net. Rochester getting the upset victory over Philly, 15-12. Rochester led 4-3 after 1, 9-7.5, and they had a 4-1 advantage in the third to take this one. Lanchbury 2-7-9. Fields was unbelievable in this one, going 2-8-10, 16 shots on net, 13 loose balls. McConvey 3-2-5, Smith 3-3-6, and the biggest note, Rylan Hartley is back. 32 of 44 saves in net. Philly, Rezateris led the way, 5-3-8. Mitch Jones 1-7-8, but Caputo was kind of quiet. You had Katoni was kind of quiet, and Damoud 48 of 63 shots. Philly just gave up way too many shots in this one.
Classic
Toronto
Philly
takes down Colorado in overtime, 9-8. Toronto led 2-1 after 1. A 5-1 lead or run in the second makes it 6-3 Colorado at half, but a 5-2 second half advantage for Toronto takes it to overtime before Josh Dowick takes it in midway through overtime. He had 4 in this one. DeSnew was really good, 1 assist on 11 loose balls, 2 block shots, 3 caused turnovers. Schreiber and Erlin added back to this lineup along with Harris. Toronto, 3 straight victories after Zed Williams did not play for Colorado in this one. But Dylan Ward, man, 57 of 68 shots. Another goaltender who was on the losing end who just got peppered with shots. Georgia takes down Las Vegas in a very controversial game. 16-14 win. 3-2 after 1, 9-6 at half, and 13-11 Georgia after 3. It was actually 15-14 Georgia with 2:44 to go, but Las Vegas could not pull this one out. Hannah 3-5-8. The man is just unbelievable, but it was Georgia coming away with the victory. Elkelston 4-4-8, and I believe his second or third game as an NLL pro. Great stat line there. And then the final game here, Saskatchewan Rush takes down San Diego 12-8. They actually led 7-0 at halftime. Yeah, that's right. They shut out the Seals the entire first half. San Diego was 0 for 4 on the power play, while the Rush were 4 for 10. So they won up Buffalo, giving power play opportunities. Mans 2-6-8. Keenan and Church are back to normal. Shanks was quiet, 1-1-2. And Kazik in his second straight start because Frank Scigliano had the birth of his child before the game last week. He's still out dealing with that. I shouldn't even say dealing with that. He's out there being blessed with that. Celebrating, that's a better word. Thank you. That's why you're a wordsmith and I am not. 36 of 44 for Thomas Kazik. Great outing. And then San Diego, 3-5, man. I don't know what's going on with San Diego, but they have struggled mightily, both offensively, and O'Reilly was not strong in this one. He only played 39 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, the big highlight, I think, of this whole run of games is, for one, we still have no idea who's good in this league and who's not. That seems to continue.
Who's number
I
two
think.
In this league? Like, it's Buffalo and then who?
Right.
Like,
that's kind of
these
the
power
problem.
rankings are just going to blow up in my face on Thursday.
Like, the Rush are really putting together some good things, but there's times that they have been very susceptible and not very good. So it's a little bit all over. I mean, Buffalo still, like you said, stands alone at the top. Outside of that, it's hard, especially with Toronto looking much, much better on a 3-0 run right now. Like, where are they in the power rankings? Are they starting to creep back up? They are not quite in a playoff spot. I was really hoping Colorado was going to pull that off and keep burying that team, but they are slowly climbing out of the basement. A lot of really, really low-scoring games. And, I don't know, Toronto's always been a bit... no, I guess they weren't. I mean, Toronto and Colorado being low-scoring is weird. Vancouver's pretty low-scoring. Ottawa, pretty low-scoring. But Georgia finally having a really, really good game. And two players, like you said, that kind of stand out. Georgia Eccleston finally providing some kind of secondary scoring for Georgia. It's something they've been missing for this team.
Big
Is
time.
who else is going to step up on that team to finally give them some actual pop on that offense? And they put up 16, and he had a great, great night. And then the other one, I keep wanting to call him DeWick, but Dawick, for Toronto, he seems to be really stepping up for their team as well. And Small is doing absolutely nothing this season at all. He's been just horrendous. So, I mean, Toronto also looking for a player to step up, and he seems to be that guy right now. 4-0 in that game. 4 goals is huge, especially when you win by 1, and one of those goals is the overtime winner. But Small, 0 goals on 9 shots. He's been just brutal for them, and Toronto was really looking for somebody on that offense to step up. So good to see somebody for them. I mean, not great because I don't like Toronto. I'd like to keep them down, but good for them overall. Tarasenko for Halifax also looked very good. Just a weird week, I guess. I mean, Pat and I did a solid 5-2 run on choosing these games, so we were okay. PK did less than that as he escapes the screen. But I don't know. I just the league's all over the place still. There's just not a ton of separation between a lot of these teams, which is really putting Toronto in a prime spot to make that jump up because all the teams in the middle are just kind of jam-packed in the middle. It's going to be another... As of right now, I mean, we talk like it's anywhere near the end of the season. It's not, but about almost, I'll say halfway through, a lot of log jams in the middle, and I think it could come down to, again, like we saw last year, 5 teams with the same record for the final playoff spot and a bajillion tiebreakers to break who actually gets in. I think you could see that again, but possibly even more this year because, like you said, no one's really separating other than the Bandits at the very top. I mean, the Rush at 6-2 looks good, but who knows what they're going to end up being. I do think they're one of the steadier teams in the league, so I think we'll start giving them that little bit of credit because they've earned it, but outside of that, everyone's a little bit all over.
Thank you, Brett Frood, for the unified standings.
It is nice. It is nice.
It's unbelievable. But, yeah, that'll wrap up the Bandits NLL segment. We'll move forward to the Buffalo Sabres. 2 big victories. They're on a 3-game winning streak. Friday versus Nashville, 4-3. McLeod, Zucker, Kulik had 2. UPL, 28 of 31 saves. Shots were 31-27 in favor of Nashville. 2-0 lead. Kulik scored with 2:04 left on the clock. And then Sunday, this afternoon, because we're recording late on Sunday, 4-3 victory over New Jersey. Tage, Paterka, McLeod, and Zucker were the goal scorers. UPL, 21 of 24 saves. Shots were 34-24 in favor of the Sabres. They jumped out to a 3-0 lead, and it was 4-1 after one point. They're 21-26-5. Like I said, 3 wins in a row. But I should be coming on here saying, hey, 3 wins in a row. You know, it's good for this team. You know, you still got to go on, like an 8-9 game winning streak just get in because you're still 11 points back of a wild card spot. But, again, I should be talking about that. But what happened in the Sunday game is just inexcusable because your star player, your best player on your team, gets blindsided and an elbow to the head. He's lying on the ice, and Phil, guess what happened? I mean, exactly what you just said. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. You have a defender who is 6'20" on the ice right now, who's wearing an A on his sweater, and he does nothing. You have a young star defenseman who's 6'20", who does nothing. The only one that did anything was just a stick tap on the shin of the guy who was Kulik. Like, there was no response. And I get that Lindy Ruff was, he said, like, hey, there were players on the bench that wanted to go after the guy and blah, 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 blah. And he has to say that because he's showing that his team has some type of pulse when it comes to this. But it's ridiculous. I'm not even asking, and they don't even play New Jersey again. Like, it's just, earlier in the season when they were in Prague, there was a bad hit on J.J. Peterka by the Devils. And there was a slight response because Tuck went right after the guy. Tuck shouldn't be doing that. You have big guys on the team. But immediately, it stopped right there. You went and defended your teammate. You have, in the NLL, somebody hits Buchanan right in the head. Your star player, Josh Byrne, runs right over and addresses the situation in that moment. Nothing. Absolutely nothing on the ice. The referees did more than the Buffalo Sabres did to stick up for their teammate. And I understand after that moment, you're up 4-2. You have a 5-minute major, and you had a shorthanded goal scored against you. So you really don't want to get an instigator and then go down and it's 4-on-4. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you're last in the standings. Show some type of pulse. And I understand that a lot of people might be saying, hey, this is the NHL. You can't really turn it off. They still want to go for the wins, and they still believe that they can go. It's 14 years of no playoffs. Like, have some type of pulse and address the situation.
Even teams that need wins and do great have those responses. Like, it's
you
part
do
of
something.
Hockey, right? You still do something. Like, I don't care if you're going for the win or not. Going for the, like, that's part of going for the win and being a good team is defending your star players. And it's not even just hockey.
Like,
right.
In life, like if you're walking down the street and your buddy's right next to you and he gets decked, are you just going to run away or just watch? And like, no, you're going to go after the guy that decked him. Like, it shouldn't just be hockey. You watched your buddy, and they always say they're big time friends and all that kind of stuff on the ice. He got hit in the head, and you're just watching it. Like, Samuelson should be like blown to the moon or something, because if you're wearing an A on your vest, that's not much leadership to see your star player and one of your buddies over there laying on the ice. And even if you didn't see it, they're all claiming, hey, we didn't see it. Your star player's on the ice. Grab somebody and just tussle. Like, right. I should be talking about 3 straight wins here, but they do nothing. And then Lindy Ruff's at the podium saying, like, oh, I had guys that wanted to address it. No, you didn't. Like, we know this team. They didn't want to address it because they're chickens. Like, it's stupid. Like, congrats on the 3-game winning streak. You're weak as cotton tissues. And
the 2 annoying things: one, Lindy Ruff was brought in to fix that. And also, players were brought in to fix that. This, gritty team that's supposed to hit a lot more. And the other annoying thing is, like, from what we know of this player, if Benson was on the ice, I fully believe Benson would have gone after that guy for hitting 10.
A 19-year-old is the only one that's willing to address
it. A 19-year-old who's ridiculously small. No offense to him. I feel like 100% if he was on the ice, he's the one who would immediately fly up and go after that guy. Probably get crushed because he's a tiny player who plays ridiculously big for his size. But, like, the fact that he's the one out of all the like, if you told me this happened, I had to pick one player on the team that I think would stand up for Tage in a situation, Benson is the first one that comes to my mind, and that's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, you even saw in the game, Priolo pushed in the Bandits game. Priolo pushed, I think it was Simmons, into Vince. And Paul Dawson might not have seen anything, but he saw Simmons make contact with Vince and immediately addressed it. Like, that's the major difference between one Buffalo organization and the other, is one of them knows the role to stick up for it. Guess what? Dawson didn't even get a penalty for it because he knows he's sticking up for his goaltender. Nothing but the Sabres. Like, absolutely nothing. And even when they see him on the ice, like, the play's over, they blow the whistle, nothing. Like, it's not even like some of the Sabres went over and grabbed somebody. Nothing. They're just standing around holding their sticks. Like, it's ridiculous. It's stupid. Again, we should be talking about the 3-game winning streak, but again, they find a different way to make us more angry, even in a victory. Like, you're back 11 points. What does a win do for you? Like, great, you're at 3 wins. Wouldn't you rather stick up for your star player who just... Because that's message
That's what
it
I was
sends
gonna
a
say,
bigger
too.
message around the league than a victory does, because it's a victory like, hey, you beat Nashville. Good job, guys. I can go around and just deck your star players and know that nothing's going to happen to me. It's just that would send a bigger message than a victory in this sport. It's just I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I hate that I have to talk about this team. Oh,
Go Sabres.
Go Sabres. Whoop-de-doo. Phil, is there anything else with this episode before we shut it down and get ready for another Buffalo Bandits bye week?
I know. See, at this point, we've been complaining about the bye week so much. And I'm going to complain about it again for this last one. But then it's, as we've mentioned 100 times, it gets real bad real quick. The rest of the season, bye weeks are not only gone, you got 2 double headers. The vacation season for the Bandits is officially over after this next week, and they start with a bit of a doozy. We'll obviously get to that in a while, but Toronto, San Diego back-to-back, that should be a really interesting back-to-back weekend for them. But for right now, we're going to continue to enjoy the Bandits being amazing, being undefeated, and being way, way better than everybody else in the league.
So on our next show, Sabres have 1 game versus Columbus. We got Buffalo Bills will be announcing our nominees for the BSC Award show. It's the most coveted award in all of sports and entertainment history. You want to stay tuned for that for our nominees. And then for the Bandits versus NLL, we'll be talking about early picks on Friday's show. Early picks for who we believe is the front runners for the certain awards in the NLL. And then the following Monday show, we'll go over what our bold predictions and everything looks like across the NLL, but especially with the Buffalo Bandits. So that will conclude this episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. We want to give a huge thank you to Tap That Tap Room and our newest sponsor, Totally Buffalo, for sponsoring this show and this episode. So with that, we'll shut her down. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article comes out on Tuesday, my power rankings on Thursday. Check out our store on our link tree on our socials or at the shop tab at the top of the website. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.